Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and I hope you're all doing amazing. Today I'm going to show you how I made this really cute cherry keyring, and I ended up making so many of them because they were so easy. And the supplies I used were some red and green yarn, a 4.5mm crochet hook, some stuffing, and a hot glue gun and some scissors. And if you're a beginner, here's how to crochet all the stitches used. So to make a slip knot, all you do is grab your yarn and make a loop, and then insert 2 fingers into that loop, and then grab and pull the loose end yarn through the loop with your 2 fingers, and then pulling both ends to tighten the knot and inserting your hook into the loop. And to do a chain, all you do is yarn over and pull up a loop through the loop already on your hook. And to do a slip stitch, insert your hook into the stitch and then yarn over and pull up a loop through all the loops, so through the stitch and the loop already on your hook. For a single crochet, insert your hook into the stitch, then yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. And for a half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, then yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook, so those 3 loops. And lastly, for a double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. So firstly, we're going to start with the leaf and the stalk. So I started by making a slip knot with my green yarn, and then I inserted my 4.5mm crochet hook into the loop of the slip knot, and then pulling the loose end to tighten the knot. I then made a chain of 86, and for me that was 41 centimeters long. And when I had finished the chain 86, I then cut the yarn and pulled the loose end through the loop on my hook. And making sure the loose ends were long enough to hide in the cherry, I then started making the leaf. So I first of all began by making a slip knot, again the same with the green yarn, and inserting my 4.5mm crochet hook into the loop. And then I did a chain of 9. I then turned my work, and then I did a slip stitch into the second stitch from my hook, and then I did a single crochet into the next stitch of the chain, and then a half double crochet into the next stitch, so essentially the 4th chain stitch, and then I did a double crochet into the next 3 stitches of the chain. Then doing a half double crochet into the next stitch, and then doing a single crochet into the last stitch of the chain. Then I did a chain 2, and then I started crocheting into the other side of the chain, and then I did a slip stitch into the first stitch of the other side of the chain, and then I did a half double crochet into the next stitch, so essentially into the 2nd stitch, and then doing a double crochet into the next 3 stitches of the chain, and then I did a half double crochet into the next stitch after that, then doing a single crochet into the next stitch after that, and then doing a slip stitch into the very last stitch of the chain, and technically the first stitch that we crocheted into at the beginning for the leaf. And then I just cut my yarn and pulled the loose end through the loop on my hook. And I did not weave in this loose end, but I did weave in the loose end at the other side of the leaf. And then finally, the next step is to make the cherry. I started by making a slip knot with the red yarn, but keeping the loop wider than normal. And then I inserted my 4.5mm crochet hook into the loop of the slip knot. I then yarned over and pulled up a loop through the loop of the slip knot, and then I did a chain 1. I then did 6 single crochets into the loop of the slip knot. And once I had done those 6 single crochets, I then tightly pulled the loose end of the slip knot to close the middle hole. I then did a single crochet into the very first stitch of the round, so that first single crochet stitch. And then I placed a stitch marker into that stitch that I had just made, and I'm using a bobby pin, as you can see, and this was to mark the first stitch of the second round. And then I did another single crochet into the same stitch that I had just crocheted into, so doing 2 single crochets into the same stitch. And doing this into all 6 stitches of the previous row, so doing 2 single crochets into every single stitch. And this is called doing an increase into every stitch. So doing 12 single crochet stitches in total for this round. And when I had finished doing an increase into every stitch for this round, I then removed the stitch marker. And I did a single crochet into the stitch that I had just removed the stitch marker from, so into the first stitch of the second round, and then I placed the stitch marker into the stitch that I had just made. And this was to mark the first stitch of the third round. And for this round, just doing 1 single crochet into every single stitch of the previous round, so doing 12 single crochet stitches in total for the third round. And when I had finished the third round of single crochets, I then removed the stitch marker, and then I did a single crochet into that stitch that I had just removed the stitch marker from, so the first stitch of the third round. I then placed the stitch marker into that single crochet stitch that I had just made, and this was to mark the first stitch of the fourth row. And again, doing exactly the same thing for the fourth round as I had just done for the third round, so doing just 1 single crochet into every stitch of the previous round, and doing 12 single crochet stitches in total for the fourth round. And I repeated this process again for the next 3 rounds after this round, so doing 5 rounds in total of 1 single crochet into each stitch of the previous round, so basically 5 rounds of doing 12 single crochets per round. And at the end of each round, removing the stitch marker and then doing a single crochet into that stitch that I had just removed the stitch marker from, so essentially doing a single crochet into the first stitch of the round, and that stitch with the stitch marker would mark the first stitch of the next round. And for this round I did a decrease into each stitch. So to start, I removed the stitch marker and then I inserted my hook into the front loop of the stitch that I had just removed the stitch marker from, and then I inserted my hook into the front loop of the stitch next to it, and then just single crocheting the front loops of those 2 stitches together. Then I placed the stitch marker into that single crochet stitch that I had just made, and this was to mark the first stitch of the 8th round. And then I just continued with the decreases for this round. So I inserted my hook into the front loop of the next stitch, and then I inserted my hook into the front loop only of the next stitch beside it, and then I yarned over and pulled through both of those front loops, and then yarned over and pulled through the 2 loops on my hook to single crochet them together, and doing this 6 times. So doing this all the way around the 8th round until there are only 6 stitches. I then took my hook out of the loop, and then I inserted the stitch marker into the loop. Now this part is optional, but it just ensures that the stem and leaf stay attached to the cherry. So I then flipped the cherry inside out. And then I got a hot glue gun and I placed a dot of hot glue on the circle of the slip knot that I made at the very beginning. I then placed one of the ends of the green chain onto the dot of hot glue, and then I pressed down to make sure that it was securely attached. I then put another dot of hot glue on top, and then placed the end that I did not weave in of the leaf and placed it on top of the dot of hot glue and pressing it down to hold it all in place. I then flipped the cherry back to the original way up. And then I got some stuffing and I put it inside the cherry and making sure that it was on top of the ends. I then began to close up the cherry. So taking the stitch marker out of the loop and inserting my hook into that loop. So for the 9th row, I then decrease slip stitched until there were only 2 stitches left. So to do this, I inserted my hook into the front loops of the next 3 stitches, and then I slip stitched them all together, making sure the leaf and the stem are poking out of the top. So doing a decreased slip stitch into 3 stitches and doing this twice, so then there was only 2 stitches left. I then did a chain 2, and then I cut the yarn and pulled the loose end through the loop on my hook. I then got a smaller hook just because I find it easier, but you can use the 4.5mm crochet hook to do this as well. So I inserted my hook into the bottom of the cherry and I pulled the red loose end that we had just made through the cherry to hide it. And to attach the cherries to the bag, then just loop the green chain over the strap that you want to attach it to, and then bring the 2 cherries through the loop of the green chain, and then pull them right through to tighten the knot like so. And that was the cherry keyring finished. Thank you so much for watching as always, and let me know if you have any questions.